We are honored to have our next guest here. He has been with us a couple of times before. Again, I'm going to say this, if you don't know his name, you're not paying attention. And he is from Light Iron Post here in Hollywood. His resume goes on forever. Light Iron is probably most known for dealing with red cameras and dealing with post. But Michael Cioni is actually changing the face of post. And that's why I love having him come to Lafsibug. And I hope one day you'll actually come here and simply talk about all the changes that you're doing. Not just necessarily the apps, but just Michael Cioni's musings on post-production. Anyway, here to talk about some really cool apps that they've just developed, please welcome from Light Iron, Michael Cioni.
Thank you. That's very kind. That's too kind. I always like coming to these groups because I know so many of you, and that's really, really important. It is totally about the actual networking of it. I totally believe that. I totally believe that's what's paramount about organizations like this. It's critical to have that, and I really think the people that have the guts to kind of go and do that isn't easy, and that's really remarkable. I applaud that. I really like that. There's a lot going on in post-production, and last time I was here, which was really wonderful and really gracious to be here, what I did is I talked about sort of kind of what's coming and some of the complexities of what was coming in terms of 4K and some projects revolving around that. But today, I have something much, much, much more tangible, which is really fun, really easy. This actually is fun. And something happened when I was doing this recently. I came to this town, Los Angeles, about 10 years ago. And when I was here, and I kind of missed the boat when it came to film. And a lot of people are like, why aren't you into film? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I kind of missed the boat on that. And I kind of always felt like I was left out in a way, or I felt like maybe I was missing something. But it just never occurred to me to kind of get involved with that. And one of the things that I never understood, and you probably have heard this before, is one of the things that's lacking with digital technologies is the physical manipulation of that, right? You guys know what I'm talking about? Is the interaction on a physical level, not just a creative level or a visible level, but the physical level. And people used to describe to me what film was like with your hands and what it was like to decide how long should a reaction shot be. Well, take the film, pull about the length of your arm, and that should be sufficient for a reaction shot. I'm like, I don't understand what that means. I'd ask people who were really, really into film, and I'd explain or ask them, well, how much are you going to shoot a day? And they'd tell me in feet. And I'm like, I have no app for feet, so I don't know what that is. So essentially, I felt that I was missing something, and I didn't quite understand. But I kept my mouth shut in terms of this whole physical reaction to film, the physical interaction with film. And I don't want to get too caught up in drawing conclusions. But there's something about how an iPad brings the physical characteristics of interacting with your work back. And for me, when I started interacting with my work on an iPad, I think I got the sensation that the film manipulators were talking about. Because all of a sudden I got excited about the fact that I was doing it. It was my fingers. And I was like, this is so much better than using a mouse. Because a mouse felt like a conduit to my media. But the iPad doesn't. It is the media. It's me and it, and nothing, no cables in between me and it. And I really got this feeling, and it clicked back in my head. I'm like, I wonder if this is what editors used to talk about, filmmakers used to talk about in terms of that. And maybe it's a stretch. Maybe it's just a version of that. Maybe it's an iteration. But nonetheless, I think there's something special about that. And that's kind of what brings me into this particular app today. This app I released about 10 days ago. This is probably 8 or 9 months in the making. It was an idea, and then the idea grew, and then we started constructing the app, and it took about 9 months to build this. And the app is called Todailies. And the idea for Todailies is to give the most comprehensive support and interaction with you to control your dailies work. Not something that you just view, it's something you interact with. And that's really important to me, that people are not just hitting play and watching. that they're actually controlling it. And it's more than that, because I've been in rooms where directors or DPs may be actually running the screening like verbally, and they try to describe, oh, go to the next take. Oh, not that. Oh, go back one. Oh, go halfway. Okay, too far. And they're trying to dictate shuttle and jog to someone who's running a VTR or a projector or something like that. It's very clunky. It's sort of like if I were to ask you, I need to make a call. Could you dial it for me? You'd be like, you could dial it yourself, you know. And that's sort of what it always felt like to me, is the idea that, you know, let the person who wants to see it, who's in charge, also hit play and stop and rewind and fast forward and next and previous, right? Because they know what they're thinking. They don't have to dictate it in order to get there. And that's what we wanted to use, and we knew that the iPad was the way to do it. So here are the components that the iPad delivers with this app, Todailies. First thing that's really important is I like all these systems. I like DVDs, I like web viewers, I like 2K, I like large screen projection, and I like nonlinear integration. Those are all good. But there are drawbacks to some of these when you look at those exclusively. For example, DVDs are fantastic because you can take them home. You can be in the middle of nowhere and you can put in a DVD and you can look at your work. And that's really convenient. But everyone knows that DVDs are fairly low quality. Plus, in the last 4 years, everybody started buying high-def televisions, but not many people can easily and quickly make Blu-rays. So you have this disconnect between high-def TVs and standard-def DVDs. And you notice how you do a Project Burn a DVD and put it on your high-def television, it doesn't look so great anymore. And that's a problem. But it's a lot easier to create than a Blu-ray. So there's a problem with that. Web viewers are really convenient because you could be anywhere in the world and you can connect to them. And they're very secure, because you need login and password in order to get to them. But the problem is the quality of the media on there, or the speed in which you can get it, is contingent on how good your internet connection is. If you have a low or slow internet connection, not only do you have to wait for the downloading to happen, but you can't quickly browse between lots of takes. You have to always wait for a loading and a refresh and things like that. You can't reorganize things very easily. So web viewers have a major bonus, but they also have a little bit of a downside. 2K resolution, huge bonus. Everyone wants to see more pixels on the screen. That's obviously a bonus. And now with the iPad 3, there are ways in which you can get QuickTime movies to behave to play back on the iPad as 2K files. And so you can actually be working and looking and viewing your media at the same pixel count that you're probably going to distribute. And that's a really profound way to look at it daily. Next, large screen projection. Well, thanks to the ability for us to integrate with AirPlay, which is Apple's wireless video sharing, you can simply buy a $99 little Apple TV. I think I have one here somewhere. You can have a $99 Apple TV, and when you have that, you can project the content from the iPad to a projector like this, or to a plasma screen, or to your home television, very easily, automatically, essentially. So your iPad just becomes a transmitter. And then nonlinear integration. Perhaps the coolest thing about this application is how it interfaces with editorial. Because dailies are useless if all you do is watch them and you don't convey what's happening down the pipeline. You need to get that information down the pipeline. You don't want to write a whole bunch of notes on pieces of paper. So this is a way to do that. So here's a couple important things about this. First of all, it works with iPad 1, 2s, and 3s. So there's nothing wrong with using an iPad 1. The way in which the iPad 1 works is essentially the same as the iPad 3, but the resolution is higher on the iPad 3. So that's the major difference, is you're going to be able to work with higher res on an iPad 3. But a 2 and a 1 do the exact same thing. Next, if you're using larger iPads, which I recommend, the 64 gigabytes are really convenient for this. You can hold 70 hours, 2, 3, 4 weeks worth of dailies on your iPad. Now, if you imagine what 70 hours of DVDs would look like on this table, I mean, it would be pretty ridiculous. And if I said, hey, could you quickly just find this one shot where we shot in the coffee shop and that ambulance drove by, you'd be like, I don't know where to start, you know. But with this application, you could just start whipping away and rifling through and sorting, because you have the ability to sort things. So that's really, really powerful. The ability to carry, for TV people, you can carry an entire episode of something. For independent filmmakers, you can carry the entire show on your iPad if you chose to do so, which is a really powerful thing. Next, you have wireless syncing to multiple iPads. This is critical. One of the problems with other systems out there, and there are very few systems that actually do this, but one of the problems with other systems out there, and even using the Apple player for QuickTime in the iPad is that it's run by iTunes. And we all have a place in our heart for iTunes. But we don't want iTunes to rule everything, right? And the problem, sometimes you plug in your iPad and iTunes starts bouncing at you and you're like, oh my gosh, iTunes, quiet. So the problem is you want to be able to move media to the iPad without having to rely on iTunes. Plus, if you've ever moved 50 or 60 clips through iTunes, it is pretty sloppy. It gets very hard, very cumbersome, very hard to manage that. And what this system does is it allows you to not have to put it through iTunes. You can skip iTunes altogether. So iTunes still works. That's your private world. And then your professional world is using Todailies. So you don't have to mix them. The other thing that's a bonus for it being a wireless transmission is you can have a project where you want to transmit to 3 or 4 different people's iPads and you never have to touch them, which means you never have to get their password, you never have to plug it in. If it's your iPad, you never have to give it up for somebody to touch and have to hook to their computer because they can mess things up. They can accidentally resync your entire iPad. They can delete all those pictures of your kids. That's no good. So you need to have a simple system that moves pictures only, video only, to the iPad without needing tether or anything like that. And that's what Todailies also does. Super convenient. Next, automated naming, which allows for a really powerful browser. We can change the name of everything, and you can do that. There's 3 different ways to change the name. But you can create scene and take namings, and that way you can get some database that allows you to sort and search by different scenes and takes and bin and things like that. Things that you might hear would normally happen with editorial, but you can do with just one finger on an iPad. The other thing is that allows for the browsing to become very powerful and very convenient when it comes to having thousands and thousands of takes, because over quite a bit of time you're going to end up with multiple thousands of takes. You want to have a simple way to organize that, and when I show you how it works, you'll see this is really, really simple and clean. Next, we have automated and custom sorting. Sorting is really critical because I find that depending on who you are, you may want to watch dailies slightly differently than the next person. For example, if you're a DP, you may want to watch things by camera because you're more interested in what your operators are doing and the shots that you're getting. So you want to simply sort it by camera, and it'll separate A, B, and C cameras. If you're a director, you actually may want to sort it by scene and take because you actually want to see it in scene and take order, and it'll play that. And let's say you're a producer and you just want to see the best of everything. So you just want to see the circle takes and you don't care about the order of the cameras. You just say sort by circle. One button can change the order of everything in the iPad instantly. So you can adjust the order, you can get rid of takes you don't want to see without any problems, which is fantastic. The ability to build timelines. This is that integration with nonlinear editors that is super hypercritical. You want to be able to make playlists or look at footage and end up being able to transmit that footage to the edit room. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment, which is really, really fun. And then next we have the ability, this is how we do that. We actually can export EDLs, ALEs, or XMLs right out of the iPad. So you have the ability to take your timelines, which we kind of call playlists, and submit them to the edit room where they can rebuild and relink them. So it becomes a very easy way to integrate with editorial and them to see your work. Or if you can't be at a screening and it needs to show, you can simply send the list and be like, these are the clips I want to show. Or if you're delivering something to, let's say, people that are doing visual effects, you could put all those in a playlist and say, here are the files that are VFX pulls. Something like that, all from an iPad. I mean, it's fantastic. And it's very practical. Now, what types of tools do you need to implement this into your system? Well, it's actually fairly low tech, and that's one of the things we tried really hard to make this be, because we knew that if it was complicated and large and expensive, no one would do it. And that's a really interesting thing about technology. One of my biggest problems is that people who are afraid of technology, first of all, they'll never admit it. Second of all, what they do is they come up with a whole bunch of different techniques in order to make the technology not happen. Sometimes they'll really push the cost barrier and say, you know, it costs too much. We just can't try this new thing. And you go, okay, it costs too much. Maybe on the next one we'll have more money. Or they'll say, it takes too long to set up. Okay, that could be a reason, so let's not do it. Or they say there's just too much infrastructure required in order to use it. Oh, it takes a lot of infrastructure. Or we can't use another person. It's going to be a whole other body on the set in order to do this. Okay. Well, what we did is we listed all those excuses that people will make, and we tried to address every single one of them and eliminate them. So we eliminated the cost. We eliminated the infrastructure. We made it simple to use. So you can use existing people on set that you already have on payroll or already on part of the project. And we made it so that it's something that a tool that people already have. So you don't have to invest in something new. The main components here, you're looking at a laptop or a MacBook Air, something like that. Most people have something of that nature on the set. You're looking at a Wi-Fi router, but basically a very, very small router system. Oh, there you go. So this is just a $40 D-Link router. You can get this at Fry's on your way home tonight, you know, like it's like that easy. I like the ones with the antennas because they have a little bit more power, and antennas can be extended. So if you wanted to put on a little C-stand and just run a little cable up, get the antenna a little higher, no big deal, just better coverage. And then you can go to the iPad 1, 2s, or 3s, and people already have iPads. Who'd have thunk? So the investment in this whole thing is probably already complete. And you say, there's this new way we can look at dailies. Do you want to try it? And they go, well, what do I need? And they're like, do you have an iPad? Their answer is either, yes, I already have an iPad, or no, but I really want one. So you're good both ways. So it's a pretty easy way to go about it. So what I'm going to do now is kind of show you how this works. So what we have to do, you don't have a lavalier, do you? A lavalier? No? Okay. No, okay. Well, I'm just going to have to set up one of these stands because I need both hands to do this. Bear with me. Here's what we got here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to launch Todailies, and the first thing that's going to happen is you have a name and password for login. So this is critical. The name and password is run on a light iron server. That's what goes on the laptop. Light iron server, just think of it as air traffic control. It's a little program you run on a MacBook Air, or MacBook Pro, or Mac Pro, and it simply allows you to have users that make name and password and gives direction to which iPad is supposed to get which file. So just think of landing airplanes on a runway. That's what Light Iron Server does. You just have one person set that up ahead of time, and every day new clips come into existence. It'll push those files to the iPad. Does that make sense? Pretty simple. You can also enable things like watermark and password and things like that. So my password for this is just going to be 123, which I pre-labeled. And what I've got here is I've logged in now. What you can see is actually the first thing happening at the very top is the iPad is starting to sync because it's asking the server, which is actually running on my laptop, are there any new takes that I don't have yet? And every day you come to set, even if you were to leave set early a day and come back the next day, it'll say, hey, I'm missing half of yesterday's footage. Bring it over. And it'll automatically push that for you because like an air traffic controller, it's doing the work for you and always asking, what do you need? What are you missing? What needs to be moved to the iPad? So it's going to sync those files right now, and it's using the house wireless because I logged on to it. So it's a really nice, robust way to move the files along. So it's just going to keep syncing those files. So now you can see I have about 10 days worth of footage in this iPad. So if I just click inside of here, you can see there's one clip in there, but if I go into one of these days, I have all this footage inside of this day 7. So what's really nice is I can look at it in thumbnail mode, or I can look at it in list mode. List mode allows you to see a lot more files at once because it's, you know, without the thumbnail. But if you really like the thumbnail, you can have that option as well. Now watch this. This is one of the coolest things about this. It's the ability to rifle through your takes quickly because that's important. If I grab this take right here and let it load in there, watch how fast I can rifle through my takes quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I go into list mode, I can click on any of these takes and just rifle through. So it's really powerful to do that. If I wanted to do that full screen, I bring my fingers up and I can just go full screen. It's actually trying to connect to the Apple TV, which I set up. So we'll ignore that for now. But I can rifle through it real quickly, really easily. I can still scrub through it if I wanted to. And I have the ability to read metadata. That metadata can be entered in a couple of different ways. We have an iPad app called Live Play, which is a metadata entry tool, which you can also use on set. Or you can enter metadata in the software itself as an air traffic controller. You can put in more metadata, such as circle take or things like that. So you'll notice every single take, this information changes. So that's really convenient because it'll tell you what's going on. I have the aspect ratio, I have the Kelvin, I have some performance notes here, I have scene and take information, I have the original file name. There's lots of good, juicy stuff inside of this file that you can do with. Now I want to look at those sorting options. You remember I was talking about sorting. So watch the actual columns here. I'll go to the top here. Watch the files change. If I hit sort and I say sort by scene and take, watch what happens. It's going to, oh, it's already in scene and take. I'm going to sort by file name. It's going to change the order, and now it's in the original order that it was photographed. If I set it to camera, now it'll put all the A cameras together and the B's at the bottom. If I put it by circle take, it'll put all the circles there, and then the bottoms are all uncircled takes. You can separate that, or I could go back to scene and take, and then it'll change that order as well. So very quick, easy sorting. When you play a clip, if I scrub to the end of this clip, watch what happens. When you play a clip and it gets to the end, got about 7 seconds left here, it'll automatically go to the next take. So you can watch this as a playlist that just keeps going. So here goes 3, 2, 1, next take. It'll automatically keep going for you. So if you were just to hit play and let it go, it would just keep going all the way till it got to the bottom of the list, nice and easily. If you're someone that prefers to see the word scene and take, you can offer that. So we have scene and take there, and now it actually lists the word scene and take. We thought some people actually might want that, but other people just can understand it by looking at 54K take 2 or something like that. Very easily and slightly customizable in that world. Now this is where we get really exciting. I now can take clips and I could start building a playlist. So I could grab a clip there, I could grab a clip there, add it to the playlist, I could add this to the playlist, and I'm starting to build a timeline here. I could go in the middle here, go to a later clip and hit insert, and it'll insert it and move everything down. So I can still do simple insert edits as well. What it doesn't do is allow you to trim. It doesn't have in and out points because that's not what the point is. We decided to draw a line in the sand. We don't want people to do what the editor is supposed to do. That's not what this program's for. This program is performance review, photography review. It is not editorial cut review. It's not story review yet, right? So we didn't want to integrate that type of idea, that type of technology into it at this point. It just doesn't feel right now. But we did want people to be able to make playlists that they can share. Now I can build a playlist here and I can make all this and start working with this. And once I click in the playlist, that lights up. And once you have that, I could just hit play all, go full screen, and it'll play through that. And so I can, even if I'm in the playlist here, if I go like this, I'm going through the playlist now instead of the browser. Okay, so you can control 2 different departments here. I can save that playlist out and call that my name. So I'll save that out. And now over in the playlist button, I have a couple different playlists. Whoops. I have a couple different playlists saved here. Aaron saved one, and here's my playlist back here. So if I were to remove this playlist and get rid of everything in here, I could always click on my playlist and recall it. So you can save playlists. That way, as you go through multiple days worth of footage, you can always recall different playlists, and you could keep assembling them to your favorite takes for the whole job if you wanted to. Now this is where it gets pretty crazy. I'm going to go back into my list here, and in the bottom of sort, in my sorting options, I have actions. And I could first add everything to the playlist, and now it's put everything in that playlist. But I'm going to remove everything there. And here I could just say, just add my preferred takes. And now I have the best 9 minutes of day 7. That quickly, I can quickly just dump that right into there. And now there's only 9 minutes of footage, and it's basically just my preferred takes. Or, if I remove those, I said, just give me the circles. Now it's 27 minutes. So I've taken an hour and a half of footage, knocked it down to 27 minutes, and I can knock that even down to 9 minutes. It's just that quick, that easy, really, really simple. Very, very easy for people to figure out and just page through and see their work that simple. Now, here's what we're going to try. This will be fun if this works. So it might be a little clunky, but you're going to forgive me if it works. It could be pretty cool. So I need a volunteer. This is going to be fun. Come on up. There was a hand. Come on up. We're going to try this here. This is pretty cool if this works. So you're going to have to come kind of around me here. I should have asked for a left-handed volunteer. You're not left-handed by chance, are you? Sorry. Okay, well, you'll live. All right, so what I want you to do is click on cards. We're going to do a card trick, the first ever iPad card trick. And why don't you just hit play on any of those, and just so people can see what's going on here. So that's 7 of clubs. Go to the next, just swipe your finger across. There you go. We got 8, we got 9 of clubs, ace of hearts. Okay, so there's your card tricks. What I want you to do is take the cards. You got basically every card you got, okay? I want you to put, like, 6 or 7 of them in a timeline. So you can add them to the playlist just in your own order. Maybe add them all, but in your own random order. Okay, so he's going to put the cards here in the order that he wants. Put at least 3, 4 more in there. There you go. Great, and an insert. Okay, so here, what's your name?
Andrew.
Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. Let's give Andrew a round of applause. Good job, Andrew. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to now, it's going through the playlist. This is Andrew's playlist. We're going to save this out. Andrew, why don't you hit save and save that as Andrew. It's an important part of the process here. We don't want to accidentally delete it. Okay. So now I'm going to hit export this as an EDL. And I'm going to email this to myself. Okay. So I have an EDL attached in an email, and I'm going to send this out. Okay. So we're going to just pause this right now. We'll go back to the beginning and just pause it. And now what I have to do is I have to go to my email, and you guys have to not read it, so that would be much appreciated. And then I'm going to come to my laptop here. Okay, I just got it. So I just got it. So I sent that, and now what we're going to do in order to do this is I think I'm going to try this. I think I'm going to try to shoot them both. Can you guys see them both? Oh, dear. It works. Here's what we've got. I have my EDL here, and I'm going to load it. You can sit down, Andrew. I do appreciate it. I do appreciate it. I'm going to take the EDL and just load it onto my desktop, and I'm going to call this Andrew. Okay? Now what I'm going to do, this is going to be very tricky, but bear with me here. I'm going to import the EDL. And it's going to bark at me because EDLs always bark at you. But now I've got this, and I'm going to relink the media. And I have the media somewhere on my desktop. It's in cards. Whoops. Cards. And it's going to say you don't have everything, but that's okay. Okay. So now I just need to build a timeline and let Final Cut 7 build this correctly for us. So once we do that, it's going to happen. And I'm going to paste this in. And here we go. So this is the first one. Let's see if this worked. I'm going to hit play here and play here. And let's see. Can you guys see them both playing? And let's see how close we are. There's the 5. There's the king. And basically, we've basically assembled an EDL from an iPad that was basically a cut list, and we've transferred it to Final Cut. Now, that's just Final Cut 7. We want to take this, and we want to go a little bit further here, because that's just Final Cut 7. Who cares about that? So, what we got to do. So what we're going to do now is export an XML, interchange 5, and this is going to be test, and the XML, it'll be Andrew. This will be from 7. Now I can close this, and I'll take the Andrew 7 XML, and I run it through a little program you guys can buy called 7 to X. If you're not familiar with 7 to X, it is a nice little translator to get Final Cut 7 projects and files and things into Final Cut 10. It's a really great way to do it, so that's what I use.
The author is actually upstairs or right here.
Is it? They are. It's fantastic. I love it. So it's $10, I think. So we love that. And while that's doing that, I'm going to open Premiere here and also try it in Premiere and see if we can do all 3 all at the same time. It is just a laptop, folks. It's just a laptop, but I think we can make it work. So here's Premiere. And Premiere, I got a little bit of a timeline looking thing here. And Final Cut 10, let's see how she's doing. Let's see here. Sometimes... And that looks good. So here we go. I am now going to go back to the beginning of Andrew's playlist. And I'm going to hit play on Final Cut, play here. And I'm going to hit play on Premiere, lower the Premiere. And now you should be seeing it all happening. So, I mean, that's a really, really... That was 8 months of work, guys. That was a lot of work. I know it looks simple, but I figure you never in post-production get a chance to actually do a magic trick with a deck of cards. So I was like, it's too crazy to pass up. So we wanted to do a card trick, and I thought what better way to do a card trick than something like this. So thank you for your help, Andrew. Appreciate that. I've never been able to have the phrase, pick a card, any card. I'll never get to say it again, so that was the big moment. Yes. So, okay. So essentially, that hopefully is the opportunity I just wanted to show was to prove out that you can move this to all of the major nonlinear editors. You can do this relatively quickly. It's pretty low tech. Like, we worked really hard to make this low tech. All that I'm doing is I'm taking the H.264 files that go to the iPad and using similar files, like ProRes versions of them, which is what they came from, to work in the edit room, because you're going to edit with like ProRes or DNX or something. So it's just a trick with relinking, and we've all had to relink before, and that's all that we're doing here. So it's pretty nice. Okay, so let's finish up here by doing this. Okay, so what we've got is, that's the, and this is the main technology I'm using here right now. Like, that's all that I've kind of got going on here, and I brought a couple other iPads to make this work. So it's all kind of happening as we speak. So what this comes down to is this: the features that are super incredible for you on this product. Personalized user settings. You can use watermarks. Like, I don't know if you guys noticed on the iPad, my name was across the bottom, so that can be a watermark. If you've got 5 people using it, it's all 5 different watermarks. You don't have to keep track of that. You turn that on, and when they log in, their unique ID is on their iPad only and nobody else's. So really convenient for you on that side. The wireless syncing is a big deal. I don't want people touching my iPad, and you can do the whole thing without being connected to anything, which is really critical. Individual watermarking, I mentioned that. Password protection. If you want to have password protection, it's enabled at the user level at the start of the production. So once you give them a password and they log in, they have to be on the network, okay? So if someone had bought Todailies on the iTunes store, they can't just walk on the set and start getting files, right? They have to be given permission at the beginning when they're on set. Once that password's given to them, they can be off-site. They don't have to have an internet connection, and that password is sort of saved in the iPad, and you have to know your password to get in. So if you were to leave your iPad at a restaurant or someone's house or something, they couldn't just turn it on and watch your files. It's not possible. You need a name and password to get in. So that's important as well. HD and 2K resolution. The best files are kind of in the 4 megabits per second area. That's if you want like 2K, do it at 4 megabits. If you're just doing 720p, you can do that easily at 2.5 megabits per second. So it's multiple hours of footage per gig. It's very, very efficient. Dynamic sorting, the ability to change the order very quickly. Playlist editing, you saw that we can cut playlists. Andrew did an insert edit and all that type of stuff. I mean, that actually makes me feel really good, because you watched me do it, you came up and you did it yourself. So that tells me it's simple enough that people can do those types of simple tasks, simple features. Wireless projection through the Apple TVs, which you can do, and then exporting as ALEs for Avid, XMLs, or EDLs. And we'll probably have a Final Cut 10 XML, because it's slightly different than Final Cut 7. But since Philip's program works so well, you might as well just use that, and that makes use of that product as well. You saw it work. It's really, really fantastic. So all this comes together for $10. And what people ask sometimes is like, why on earth would you give this away? There you go. I'll take it. I'll take it. The question is, why is all this for $10? And if you remember a little earlier, I was talking about barriers that people put up for technology. And it really hurts me when I see people that are struggling to implement progressive technology, and there is someone or some way to make an excuse to prevent that from happening. I wanted to bear the burden of the financial limitation myself, so that no one can use that as an excuse. I've removed "it's too expensive" from the equation for you and make it free. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. And the reason for that is because iPad development isn't my core business. iPad application isn't what I do for a living. It's sort of a hobby, and it's something that I enjoy doing, and I love solving problems. But this isn't the core business of what Light Iron does. We focus on image manipulation and mastering and finishing. But these tools we want everyone to use. And if all of a sudden this tool, which I think is worth hundreds of dollars per iPad. I really do feel it's worth that. All of a sudden, if you do that, people start coming up with reasons why they shouldn't be using it or why they can't use it. So the $10 number is really there because I want everyone to have access to this, and I don't want to have any classification between who can afford it and who can't afford it or who it's for. In fact, the more Apple-centric you are, the easier this app is to pick up. It's pretty self-explanatory. Someone asked, is there a manual for it? And I looked at them like, seriously? No, and there won't be one. If you need a manual for this, you probably shouldn't have a driver's license. So I should ask them, did you drive here? So what we've got here is a tool that everyone can use. It's really fun, but we are a small company, and being a small company allows us to change very quickly, and so we love people that give us feedback. A lot of features that we're putting into this application, which are free upgrades, we're actually on our second release in 10 days, because we had some really good features. And there's going to be time spent debugging it, because there's probably a lot of people that are going to use it and push it in ways that I hadn't thought of, or on systems I hadn't tested on. We have to fix those things. So we want people's feedback. We welcome it. We want features, and we want to know how they're using it. And a $10 price tag on it, I think it makes it more convenient for us to get a wider base of feedback from the customers and things like that. And that's important for us. The sister application to this, to Live Play, is the metadata entry. It's a little more advanced. It's someone, if Todailies is good for you and you want to take the step up, Live Play is the way to kind of move it a little bit further down the line with more advanced metadata entry. But they don't require each other in order to work. There is some literature up here about that, both applications, which you can get. It's a front and back page, so that's really helpful. But I kind of want to just leave you with this thought. Essentially, what's happening in the industry is it's pretty interesting. We're coming off of NAB right now, and I thought we were going to come off with a lot of I thought it was going to be really, really, I thought NAB show was great this year. There was a lot of great movement in directions that I think are really positive. But it turns out there's a lot of turbulence right now, and I'm listening and watching and kind of waiting and feeling and putting my ear down to the track. And right now there's a lot of politicking going on, more than usual. Maybe it's because it's an election year, I don't know. But it's definitely got a lot of politicking going on. And what I want people to do is just try to filter out the commentary, filter out the noise, and just don't succumb to some of the pressures. I'm under a lot of pressure right now to change a lot of things based on ways in which people want to standardize some of the things in my life and some of the things that affect me. And I don't feel like that. I don't feel like doing that. And it's difficult. It's difficult to play that, to dance, figure out how to do it. And I just, I know in the company of the people in this room, I know there's support for that feeling. There's support for just do what feels right. And that's important. It's really important. And that's kind of the hard thing going on right now. Is we have to stand up. We have to be vocal. We have to make sure that this is essentially. I use the term, and some people get the joke, and others don't. The term is that a lot of the best technology, Apple says the best technology should be invisible, and I believe that. The best technology should be invisible. But I also add to that, the best technology should have no class. It should be classless. I have no class, and I want to have a shirt that says, I have no class. I think people would wear it, right? Because the idea is if you have no class, it means that the best technology doesn't know the difference between a $300 shot and a $300,000 shot. The computer doesn't know the difference. The camera's dumb. It doesn't know the difference between those things. Only you and I do. And we sort of put ourselves in classes because we know how much the shot costs. We know what the budget is. But I like the idea that I can have no class, that the technology that I use has no class, which is to say it has no boundaries. There's this binge that I'm kind of on right now because as a lot of people are trying to push to what I've decided to call singularity, I then decided I need to push for pluralism because I want to have options and I want people to have options and I want anyone that has a desire to do something, I want to say whatever is fine with you is fine with me. We don't have to filter this through a coffee filter so it all looks the same at the end of the day. Pluralism means liberation. It means we can do it any way we want. And we make the technology work for us, not we become slaves to the technology. So take that, under consideration. Think about it. Do some reading. Do some poking around what's going on in terms of how the industry started trying to settle in. Cameras like the Red and file-based cameras like this, you remember meetings a couple years ago where, Ted had to come here and, this group, of course, opened his your arms to him. But I've been to meetings with Ted where, tomatoes are thrown, right? Seriously. I've been in places with Ted, and I'm like, I'm going to leave by myself. I'm going to just slump in the chair and hope nobody calls on me, right? But the Red's here to stay. A lot of these systems, a lot of people are using systems now that are totally here to stay. And if they're here to stay, people are now like, well, I didn't think this was going to be around for very long. But now that it's here, we better do something about it. And we got to control it, right? We got to control some of these ideas. And that's something that I'm concerned about, is the agenda for control, singularity. So think about that. Think about what that means to you, and everybody to each his own. But for me, I'm for pluralism. All right? I hope you are too. Thank you. Bye-bye.